Another bullish note, in all fairness for the audience, you're pretty much bullish on all tech. You're always bullish. AI party, it's 10 o'clock, goes to 4 o'clock, there's an after party. I understand the whole narrative. But on a very serious note, we're looking at Apple right now. What pushes this company even higher?
I mean, our supply chain checks coming out of Asia are bullish. I mean, I think right now they're trending 5 to 10 million iPhone units ahead of the street. And what that means is you have a strong holiday season, the AI revolution on the consumer side comes through Cupertino, and that's worth $30 to $40 per share.
All right, so you're seriously bullish. By the way, your price target is at 300. The consensus on the streets at 255, right where the stock's trading at right now.
Sure.
Is in fact, so almost everybody else sees the stock pretty much stand where it's at.
Dan highlights a bullish outlook for Apple, driven by strong iPhone sales and AI advancements, with a price target of $300 per share. He expects Apple to benefit from a large number of iPhones needing upgrades, particularly as AI features become more integrated into the devices. He also emphasizes the role of AI in the consumer market, with Apple leading the charge. While AI is being developed for various devices, Dan believes the iPhone will be central to this revolution, positioning Apple for continued growth. Finally, Dan discusses Nvidia's dominance in the AI space, but notes that other companies like Broadcom and Marvell will also benefit. While there may be short-term risks, he believes the AI investment cycle will drive long-term growth for key players in the industry.
Is this still, now as we take it towards NVIDIA, I mean, is it just still NVIDIA's world and everybody else is just living in it? And is that the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future?
You know, I think that, when Broadcom reported and Hock Tan, outlined the vision for custom silicon, that was a change statement in the market, appreciating how the world is led by and dominated by NVIDIA, but that there's also a rising tide here for custom silicon that will help the likes of Broadcom and Marvell as they support, in Broadcom's case, Google, Meta, TikTok, and in Marvell's case, Amazon and Microsoft. So, there's definitely different spots for the different kind of areas of silicon, but, at a very high level, as you think about NVIDIA going into their best product cycle in the history of the company with Blackwell, it's hard to not, think of them as the top outperformer for all of semis in 2025.
But how do we know how long the cycle is and how many quarters we could see growth like this? How does it compare to other previous semiconductor cycles?
Well, this cycle is unlike any other. I think most investors look back to the advent of the internet and how long kind of the internet infrastructure investment cycle played out. But this one's very different, right? Where the companies that are making the investments, predominantly the hyperscalers, they're generating meaningful free cash flow despite spending hundreds of billions of dollars building out AI. And let's be clear, this is existential for these companies as they all try to get to AGI. And so I think this is a multi-year investment cycle. And, just on Friday, OpenAI released O3. And this model is incredibly important in the sense of the improvements that they're making, the reasoning that they're using. So it's post-training reasoning, where the more compute you apply to the large language model, the better the outcome. And really the big takeaway is that it's driving even incrementally more compute requirements to get to AGI. So the short answer, I think investors are going to be surprised by the magnitude and duration of the investment in AI. And I absolutely believe that, if there is a pause for NVIDIA, the first we would see it would be 2027. And if I'm right with that assumption, then there's clear line of sight for growth for the top AI accelerator companies. So NVIDIA, Broadcom, Marvell, I would say the key arms dealers underneath that, whether it's TSMC or ARM or, semi-equipment players or test companies like Advantest and Teradyne. So I think this AI investment cycle really has legs.
On the list from Torsten is one of the risks to the rally, again, that NVIDIA earnings disappoint inflated expectations. He says there's a 90% chance that happens, that expectations have gotten so grand that they're bound to disappoint. And that's an overall market risk. I mean, the stock has not traded well at all in the last couple of months.
So, I mean, what if I tell you that at 31 times forward earnings, perhaps NVIDIA has already priced that in? By the way, what did he say, a 90% chance?
Yeah. NVIDIA's priced in a disappointment. The stock's up 178% year to date.
I got it. And as you just mentioned, it's off. And as I just also mentioned, it's 31 times forward earnings. He might be right, but the trajectory here matters a lot. Do we really think that the next quarter, the quarter we're in right now, NVIDIA is going to disappoint with everything we're hearing about demand for the chips? I don't. However, if he's saying by the end of the year there might be disappointment, that's a long time. And perhaps I think the 90% is too high. But I'll say this, just to make sure I'm super clear, I don't think this quarter or the next quarter we're looking at a rational reason for a disappointment in NVIDIA earnings.
I think the biggest risk in 2025 is earnings growth. If you look at the annualized earnings growth rate of the S&P the last 10 years, it's 8%. What's consensus for 2025?
Is it like 15?
14.8% this morning is where we are. That's a high ceiling that you have to kind of achieve. So I think that's the biggest risk is earnings.
With the Mag 7 decelerating from 55 to 20.
Some of the Mag 7 decelerating.
If you look at them as a unit, that's the number.
That's fair.
So I want to get to some of the data from your note. It's a really good note that's out today again. Your estimate is for 240 million iPhones to be sold in fiscal year 2025. You also say there's 300 iPhones that need to be upgraded, basically haven't been upgraded in 4 years. That's a big chunk of those non-upgraded iPhones. I want to ask you, is it just Apple Intelligence? Is that what people are upgrading for? Or is there something else in there?
And there's two things. I mean, one, look, this super cycle, it's really going to be an AI-driven super cycle for Apple. Half of it is 300 million of the 1.5 billion iPhones. They haven't upgraded in 4+ years. So you're seeing that play out really across the globe, including in China. But ultimately, we could talk about the AI revolution from an enterprise, goes through Godfather of AI, Jensen, Nvidia, and as well as Palantir and others. The consumer AI revolution from an Apple Intelligence will come through the iPhone.
Now, Dan, you know I'm a fan of yours, but I do have to push back on one thing. I know you talk to a lot of developers, and a lot of developers are creating apps for iPhones, but they're also creating apps for laptops. And we have not seen an AI revolution in laptops. Everybody keeps saying we're going to see this big churn and people buying new laptops to get these AI capabilities. Why are phones so much different than laptops? I
think, first of all, phones, that's the first step in terms of these developers. Hundreds of apps that will be built on top of Apple Intelligence in terms of from an AI perspective. When you look at laptops and iPads, that's coming. That's why right now this is a renaissance of growth for Apple. First the iPhones, then ultimately the rest of the product line. But that's why right now they're playing chess. Others are playing checkers in terms of AI revolution.
Okay, even if they're playing chess, there have to be some benchmarks here. So again, you're calling for 240 million iPhones sold in fiscal year 2025 on the strength of Apple Intelligence. So when we're looking at this, if they do 220, is that a failure? Is that a referendum that Apple Intelligence isn't working? It's still a whole lot of iPhones, and still a lot of those have to be upgraded. But what's the number in your mind that they really have to hit for Apple Intelligence to be a quote-unquote success?
Yeah, and I think, and look, this is going to be multi-year, but 220 million, it's a line in the sand.
Okay.
230 million, bullish. 240 million, Cook's going to be in the dance floor at that AI party. And I think as this all plays out, all of our checks coming out of Asia are showing much more toward a 240 million. And that's why, look, the bears, they can't see AI in the spreadsheets. So this is all just starting to play out for Apple, which is why I think $4 trillion on the horizon.
It's easy to talk about Apple. It's one of the most widely held stocks in the market, huge mega cap stock. But we also want to talk to you about the Apple ecosystem. If Apple is able to reach anywhere close to this estimate of 240 million iPhones, who else benefits?
Look, I think on the consumer side, I mean, tangentially, you're going to have other big tech players, Google, Meta, you know, in terms of just from an advertising perspective, as it all plays out on the consumer side. But look, I think right now it's really going to be, if you look at Roblox, you look at some of these other sort of consumer-driven names, Frank, our view is we're just starting now. It's year 3 of what's going to be a 5 to 6 year bull market. But Apple, Cook, they're going to be a key player in this AI party.
Dan shares a bullish outlook for Apple, forecasting strong iPhone sales, driven by AI advancements and a large number of upgrade-ready devices. He believes Apple's focus on AI will continue to fuel growth, particularly in the consumer market. He also discusses Nvidia's dominance in the AI hardware space and the potential for companies like Broadcom and Marvell to benefit. Despite short-term risks, Dan is confident the AI investment cycle will lead to long-term growth for key players, with Apple and Nvidia leading the charge. How will AI integration in iPhones affect Apple's market growth? What risks might Nvidia face as the AI market continues to expand?